Crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you're lost in the desert and you need water and you don't have any. So where are some places you can get water? One commonly held terrible piece of advice is to drink your own pee, because it's mostly made up of water, except there's 5% of that that's all made up of just waste from your body, and even though the urine might keep you alive a little bit longer, you'll ultimately die of kidney failure. So you don't drink your own pee. Instead, you head over to some cactus you see nearby because you remember reading or hearing in school that you can drink the water inside of cactus. Except, unless it's one really specific kind of cactus, you'll be drinking lots of alkaloids and chemicals that will make you viciously ill, and you'll start vomiting and you'll have diarrhea and you'll die from dehydration much faster. So as you're sitting there wondering what you're going to do next, a venomous snake bites you. And so you instinctively start sucking on the bite to remove the poison, but you can't because it goes right into your bloodstream, and all you'll do is die much faster from infection. Crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you get stuck in a blizzard on a mountain, and you need to stay warm. So how are you going to do that? You remember hearing somewhere that alcohol is supposed to keep you warm. So you whip out your flask, you take a swig, and sure enough, you feel warm already. You feel flush in the face. But it's an illusion, because what happens is alcohol, it increases blood flow to the skin and away from your core. So it plummets your core temperature, increasing the odds that you'll get hypothermia and die. So you stop drinking booze and you head off for a cave you see in the distance. Once you get inside the cave, you remember that you know how to make a fire. And so you do. Except the problem with fires inside of caves is it starts to expand the rock above you, causing it to crack and eventually caving in on you. So you narrowly escape the cave-in, only to hear something in the background. A grizzly bear was in the cave with you, and now it's charging out to avoid the cave-in. But you remember, humans can outrun bears, and you start taking off thinking, dumb bear, and it just catches you. These are pretty cool, but it's the plot twist at the end that's gonna get you. You wake up stranded on a deserted island, and now you need to go find drinkable water. So where are some places we can find that? You look around the island and you notice a whole bunch of coconut trees, and you think, well, people drink coconut water, I'll just drink that until I get rescued. Except if you only drink coconut water and don't supplement it with another water source, you will develop wicked diarrhea and will die of dehydration. So you start looking for an alternative source of water. And you remember from that documentary about cannibals that it is safe to drink your own blood. So you cut your arm open, you start drinking your own blood, but what you failed to understand is only in small doses is that okay. Beyond a couple teaspoons, and you'll develop something called hemochromatosis, which results in your lungs filling with fluid, and you basically drown from the inside out. And so realizing the state you're in, you forget that there's an animal on the island that can smell your blood. And it's a land shark. And he rips you to shreds. The last one completely blew my mind. There exists a plankton called dinoflagellates that if you consume it, will reverse your sense of hot and cold, and it can last for years. Scientists recently discovered some sharks living in an active volcano, but they can't get in to study them because, well, it's a volcano and it's too hot. In 1972, Vesna Vulovic fell out of a plane at 33,000 feet, no parachute, and lived. Sour Patch Kids and Swedish Fish are made by the same manufacturer, and in fact, the red Sour Patch Kid is literally a Swedish fish, except with sour sugar on it. The only people that know how to open the United States president's car doors are the Secret Service. And last but not least, 1 million people got together and decided to follow this clown on TikTok, and I've got to say, guys, I'm touched. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for giving me this platform and for supporting me, and I love you guys. Thank you. The crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you're at the ATM and this guy comes up behind you with a knife. He demands that you pull out as much money as you can and give it to him. But you remember that if you just punch in your ATM code backwards, it will still give you cash, and it will tell the authorities that you're being robbed. Except that's a myth. And all you end up doing is locking your account, making your attacker that much more suspicious of you. And so what does he do? He gets ready to actually attack you. But what do? You remember that you're a karate master, and so of course you're gonna fight back. And so while you're getting in your stance, he just instantly stabs you. Because disarming someone with a knife is so hard to do, even if you're experienced at it. It's like trying to disarm a child who's got an uncapped marker without getting marker on you. It ain't gonna happen. So now you're stabbed, but you remember, I can just yank this bad boy out and apply pressure and be fine. But that's not true. You bleed to death. The crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will save your life. They don't.
Let's pretend you've just moved into your brand new house and you hear some strange noises coming from the basement. Although it may seem really appealing to want to go downstairs and investigate your basement, it's a terrible idea because there's going to be a demon down there. But you decide you still want to go down, and so of course, what's down there? A demon. And as soon as you reach the base of the stairs, they grab you, they start throwing you against the wall, you manage to scramble back upstairs and slam the door behind you, narrowly escaping death. At this point, most people believe that the right thing to do in this situation is to get your Ouija board out and try to make contact with your demon to maybe convince them not to harass you. But demons don't respond well to that, and typically it only incites them to do more damage to you and your family. You play with a Ouija board anyways, you make contact with your demon, and before long somebody's possessed, and your demon's charging out after you. You take off running, but then you remember that if you just forget how to run, no demon can catch you. Except that's not true. They will catch you. I might eat the first two, I would never eat the last two. This is pufferfish, and it's a Japanese delicacy. It's also extremely poisonous, so much so that it takes 2 years of training before you're allowed to serve this stuff. Because one pinhead of the neurotoxin found in these things can kill 30 humans and there's no antidote. Ackee is the national fruit of Jamaica, and it can only be eaten totally ripe. If you eat it unripe, or if you eat these black seeds, you develop something called Jamaican vomiting sickness, and it can kill you. This is fried monkey brain, and it's served primarily in Asia. And somewhat ironically, if you eat this stuff, you run the risk of developing something called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, which is like mad cow disease, and it drills little holes in your brain and ultimately kills you. And last but not least, you have blood clams, which are popular in Southeast Asia. They can cause hepatitis, dysentery, and typhoid, and roughly 15% of people that eat these things will be infected. The only one you might accidentally do is number 14. 125,000 pieces of tuna sushi, 11,000 oranges, 500 teaspoons of sugar, 400 bananas, 130 teaspoons of chili powder, 85 chocolate bars, 70 cups of coffee, 48 teaspoons of salt, 37 and a half tubes of toothpaste, 18 apples worth of seeds, it's just the seeds, 5.1 pounds of spinach, 2 whole cows worth of beef, 1.5 gallons of water, 2 cherry pits if you chew it. And of course, if you eat 1 polar bear liver, that'll get you. Most people I can't even do this. Most people believe these 3 things will save your life. They don't. You're watching TV late at night and an urgent news bulletin comes on warning you there's been a zombie outbreak. You look out your window and sure enough, there's a zombie. What do? Your instincts are going to tell you to start sprinting around your house, turning on lights, smashing glassware, screeching like an owl, but you really shouldn't do that because you'll be alerting the zombie to your location, not repelling it. So instead, you decide to make a run for town. On your way, you see a group of people blazing down the road and you wonder if you should flag them down, try to get some help. But you shouldn't, because even though this outbreak is only 5 minutes old, everybody in the world who's not a zombie has already joined an evil biker gang and they just want to murder you. You take off running in order to avoid the biker gang and you reach a clearing in the woods where you run into your obviously infected best friend Karen. And you go up to give her a big hug because now you're saved. Except you're not, because Karen's a zombie and Karen just kills you. Most of you will be guilty of number 3. You're on vacation in Illinois and a local salamander dealer comes up to you and he says, "Hey, can I interest you in buying 76 salamanders?" And you're like, "Actually, that sounds pretty good. I can get a lot done with 76 salamanders. Give me all 76. You fool. 75 is the legal limit. On the last day of your tobogganing trip to South Dakota, you're feeling tired, and so you decide to avoid the slopes that day and hit up the local cheese factory and take a tour. You get inside, you start feeling sleepy, and you decide, you know what, this is a good place to take a nap, and so you do. You fool. It's illegal to nap in cheese factories in South Dakota. It's nighttime and you've just arrived in New Hampshire for the National Spelunking Championship and you're totally stressed about the competition the next day. So you go down to the beach to collect yourself, clear your mind, and you notice a huge amount of seaweed on the beach and you think, maybe I should collect this. And so you do. You fool. You can't collect seaweed at night in New Hampshire. Most of you will be guilty of number 3. You've just arrived at the high school in Ohio where you're about to give a presentation on how to build papier-mâché seahorses when you realize that you're out of glue. But luckily, you spot a dead skunk on the side of the road, you grab that carcass and you think, I can turn you up into glue in no time. You fool. No skunk glue allowed in Ohio. You wake up on a hot Sunday morning in Atlanta and you decide you want to treat your 2 rattlesnakes to some ice cream. So you head down to your local parlor and you get 2 cones, 1 in each fist. And as you're walking back, you remember that you locked your front door and you're going to need to get your keys out. So you take one of your cones and you slip it into your back pocket to free up that hand to get to your keys. You fool. No ice cream allowed in your back pockets on Sundays in Georgia. You're flying your plane into Alaska for a Quidditch tournament, and you spy some moose on the ground, and you start looking. Your co-pilot sees you and slaps you right in the nostril. And you look over and you say, "What did I do?" And he says, "Fool, you're not allowed to view Alaskan moose through a plane." When you finish this video, you're going to Google 2 words. In 2014, 2 Dutch college students were staying in Panama when they decided to take their host family's dog out for a walk. The dog returned, but the girls didn't. After 10 weeks without any leads, a local woman turned in a blue backpack that contained the girls' cell phones and their camera. Using their call log, they were able to determine that the girls would attempt to reach emergency services 77 times, all unsuccessful, starting just hours into their trip. It was also determined that 5 days after those 77 calls, somebody tried unsuccessfully several times to unlock the girls' phones. But the most distressing thing is what was found on the camera. The first set was taken on the day they left and they were totally normal. The second set was taken in the middle of the night over a week after they had left, and it showed all their belongings neatly laid out on a rock, and it showed one of the girls who appeared to be hurt. They found their remains spread out around the area where the backpack was found, and some of their bones appeared to have been bleached. There is still no official cause of death or explanation as to what happened. I was not ready for the ending to this one. In the early 2010s, 2 15-year-old friends were camping at a state forest with their families. One night, the friends decide they want to go explore the woods around their campsite, but they want to see how far they can get without using a flashlight. A little ways into their trip, they start to hear some whispering behind them, and they quickly turn around, pull out their flashlights, and start looking for what was making the sound. After a short search, they don't find anything, and so even though they're a little bit freaked out, they decide to put their flashlights away and carry on into the woods. After a little while, they start to hear the whispering again. So they pull out their flashlights. Now they're determined to find out what the heck is making this sound. They do a very thorough search, they don't find anything, and at this point, they're too freaked out and they decide to start heading back. As they start retracing their steps, they see what was making the sound. A woman comes out from behind a tree, crawling towards them, muttering random words. She sees them, stands up, and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for my campsite." They're a half mile from the nearest campsite.